Welcome back. In this session we will learn about waste collection, an essential aspect of the solid waste management system. At the end of this session, you should be able to describe the goals of waste collection, explain how waste collection can be set up with its different steps, understand the different levels of service, and know how to identify these. Describe and identify the key parameters of a waste collection service. Waste collection is a critical service for all people. It is considered a basic service together with housing, education, healthcare services, water supply, sanitation, and power supply. The impacts of uncollected waste are quite significant. If waste is not collected, it remains in the residential area, impacting on health and contributing to other threats, such as floods and fires. Here you can see what happens when waste collection service is not provided. Proliferation of rats, which feed on uncollected waste and transmit disease. Or here the impact on the drains. Where uncollected waste blocks these drains when they should be moving storm or rain, leading to flooding, both an economic loss and a health threat to all. Uncollected waste may also directly affect the economy, disrupting economic activities, such as in this picture, or specifically in tourism. By improving waste collection from the neighborhood, we ensure a clean living environment for people to live in. Waste collection objectives are to provide regular collection from the people that generate the waste. We will discuss later what regular means. Once waste is collected, we also need to ensure that it is removed and transported to the point of recovery or disposal. Of course, this service should be provided in a socially acceptable, cost-efficient, and in an environmentally friendly way, so it does not impact on health or the environment. Waste is also generated in public spaces. Litter is generated by many, in smaller amounts around the city, and may be discarded in public bins around the streets. Collection service includes the collection of such street litter in order to keep the public spaces clean. This is done by sweeping and emptying public waste bins, and the removal of this waste. Particularities of street sweeping are that it requires a rather large workforce when conducted with manual labor and simple technology. More expensive solutions used mechanized vehicles for street cleaning. Once the street litter is collected, just like any other waste, it is transported by vehicle to a recovery or disposal site. The coordination between smaller vehicles for collection and larger vehicles for transport is therefore required. Unfortunately, the current situation around waste collection is not that great, quite irregular and inefficient. Especially in low and middle incomes countries. It is estimated that in average, only 50% of the world households have a waste collection service. And unfortunately, it is very often limited to the high visibility areas of wealthier people, leaving poor urban and rural areas out of the system. Additionally, even with such low coverage, it is important to mention that 70 to 80% of the expenditure in waste management systems goes to the collection and transport. A lot of money is spent to provide services for a few. On the positive side, waste collection is often considered the highest priority for residents. People want the waste to be taken away from their immediate surrounding, and will put pressure on politicians and authorities to provide such service. Unfortunately, people are less concerned about what happens to the waste after its collection. There is a saying, out of sight, out of mind, which sums up the situation of waste collection. Let's now look at how we can best describe the waste collection system and level of service. There are 4 main categories of aspects to consider. Technical aspects, financial and economic aspects, organizational and institutional aspects, and social and inclusivity aspects. Let's start with the technical aspects of waste collection systems, the main focus of this session. The collection service needs to find a way to access the waste at the point of generation. To do so, a vehicle is generally used to collect and remove the waste from the point of generation. How this is operationalized will depend on the location and available means to best access the waste, the closest to those who generate waste. The choice of vehicle types is critical and must be made according to the areas they can access, their speed, their loading capacity, and the time needed to load and unload them. We will show specific examples of vehicles in a later session of the course. Have a look at this slum neighborhood in Kenya. From this picture, you can see that providing waste collection with a truck is practically impossible in such neighborhood, lacking enough space to circulate. Therefore, other solutions must be developed. In cities, due to the variety of neighborhoods, waste collection is split into two stages: primary collection and secondary collection and transport. The primary collection stage provides service to the neighborhood using smaller, simpler, and more appropriate vehicles. These smaller vehicles remove the waste and transfer it to larger vehicles, adapted to longer transport distances, and heading to a recovery or disposal site. Of course, some fractions of the waste can be treated at the household level, and therefore do not need to be collected. Or certain waste can be removed, recovered and recycled in the neighborhood, at a decentralized level, and therefore do not need further collection and transport. The different levels of service can be described by parameters, such as point of collection, frequency, and regularity. The WasteWise City tool of UN Habitat defines a ladder of service levels, starting from the worst-case scenario of no service, to best service, and full control service. The expected minimum requirement of service is defined by the term basic control, where residents receive door-to-door collection or go to a collection point at less than 200 meters, with basic frequency and regularity. But what do terms like collection point, door-to-door, or even frequency mean? Well, collection point is simply where the collection service accesses the waste to collect it. It can have different variations depending on the service. Door-to-door collection is waste collection done at the doorstep. Collectors can knock on each door to ask for and obtain the waste, for example. The door-to-door collection can also consist of a curbside collection service, where residents leave their waste at the curbside at a certain time, shortly before collection is scheduled. Another type of collection point is the summoned collection. This is when residents are alerted, by a bell for instance, that the collecting vehicle is present, and they bring their waste to the collection vehicle. This is considered a door-to-door service, despite some residents having to walk a short distance to the vehicle. Finally, we also have the self-delivered collection. Residents bring their waste to collection containers located at certain strategic points around the city, and later emptied or removed regularly by the collection service. This system requires the collaboration of the residents, as they need to bring their waste to this specific point. Experience has shown that such collection points should not be further than 200 meters, as residents may not be willing to walk a larger distance. Another aspect to describe the collection service is the type of waste collected. Service is provided not only for collection of mixed waste, but also for creating fractions of waste. Especially when considering approaches towards a circular economy, it is important to keep different waste types segregated to improve the opportunities for recycling. When waste is segregated by the waste generators and provided for collection, it is important that waste collection provides service for each of these fractions separately. This is what we call separate waste collection. Let's now look at other parameters to describe the level of collection service. Timing refers to the moment when waste is accessed. This could even be at night to avoid traffic congestion. But depending on the collection point, it might be necessary to have the residents themselves involved, and therefore the timing needs to allow their availability to participate. Another parameter to consider is the frequency of collection, which depends on the type of waste collected. For mixed waste that contain large amounts of organics, it will be necessary to collect it daily or on alternate days, especially in hot climates, when it quickly starts to smell and attract animals. For non-organic waste, the frequency could be much less. Think of segregated paper or metal for instance. Collecting it maybe every 2 weeks or even less is enough. We can also measure the performance of waste collection service through the following indicators. Appearance of waste collection points, the cleanliness around the waste collection point. Effectiveness of collection in low-income districts, presence of accumulated waste, illegal dumps or open burning, in and around lower-income districts. Appropriateness of service planning and monitoring, evidence of contracts, specifications of service, monitoring procedure and tools, and evidence for regular supervision on the ground. And last but not least, health and safety of collection workers, evaluation of the availability and use of appropriate personal protection equipment, and supporting procedures. Finally, as mentioned earlier, besides the technical aspects of the collection service, we can also describe the system by financial or economic aspects. What is the cost of the system, expressed as cost per ton of waste collected, or costs per person? Who and how are costs covered? By user flat rate tariffs, or depending on waste amounts generated. By taxes, etc. Organizational aspects. Who is involved and providing the service? Is it a formal or informal private enterprise? Or is it the municipal authorities or a community-based organization? And aspects of inclusivity. Who has service, and is it for all or only for the wealthy? This is it for waste collection services and infrastructures. Let's summarize what we have learned in this session. We have seen why waste collection is important, given its impact on maintaining a hygienic living environment. We then looked at the definition of waste collection, its service levels, and how these can be described by technical, economic, organization, and social aspects. Thank you for your attention. See you in the next session.